Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs and Beachside Roofing.
Aloha and good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in here on this Wednesday morning. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This morning, Yanji, we are focusing on Olelo Hawaii as we celebrate the Hawaiian language here this month.
That's right. It is, of course, Hawaiian Language Month, Mahina Olelo Hawaii, and we've invited two guests on to talk about what they're doing to help grow Hawaiian language around the world, not just here in Hawaii, but really beyond our shores. We want to welcome Kahoku Lindsey-Asing and Maile Naehu. Thank you both for being here this morning. You're both doing amazing things in this space in two different organizations. Kahoku, I want to start with you. You've got a big trip coming up. Tell us about your organization and what's happening this weekend.
Hikino, aloha kakahia kakako ova o Kahoku Lindsey-Asing, and I'm the lead organizer and coordinator for Kaiwa Ho'ola'i. And Kaiwa Ho'ola'i is a collective hui or group of makua, parents, families, keiki, and kumu with a shared goal and mission to Olelo Hawaii and Olelo Hawaii wherever we can. Being that it is Mahina Olelo Hawaii, we want to try to raise as much awareness of normalization in as many spaces and places as we can. So we're pretty excited.
I want to just kind of go over to you as well. If you can give a brief background of some of the things that you're doing to perpetuate this in the things that you're working on.
O Belina me ke aloha ia kākou o wau o Maile Naehu mai ka mokupuni o Moloka Inuia Hina. My name is Maile Naehu. I have been an educator for, I think, the last 22, 23 years. And what I've done is I co-founded a company with another mother that's raising Hawaiian children. And we started Kahale Hoaka, which is an online school of Hawaiian knowledge. And we are slowly trying to integrate Hawaiian language and Olelo Hawaii into every home in Hawaii and beyond, because we know we have more Kanaka Maoli outside of Hawaii than in Hawaii. We have so many people with very close pilina or relationships with Hawaii. And so we've created Kahale Hoaka to be able to bring that easily into everyone's space and make it very comfortable for them.
And Kahoku, I know that this weekend you and 100 people, I believe, are heading over on a special trip to California. Tell us about, we know that just to familiarize our audience as well, you wrote a great column last week in Island Voices, which is published in the paper. And folks, if you have not had a chance, please do go ahead and read that after this, because you really outlined the intention of this trip. But tell us about this Disney trip and what the goal is there.
Yeah, mahalo. So the overall huaka'i, our inaugural huaka'i, and I guess some backstory, Kaiwa Ho'ola'i was founded recently within the last couple of months. And it started off of a dream, very similar to Walt Disney, to Olelo Hawaii all over the world. We have a really good kahua here in Hawaii. We have a good foundation. Olelo Hawaii has grown within so many years, and we have a lot of language speakers now. But what's next? What can we do next? So we thought, some friends and I, some makua were like, you know what? Our keiki deserves some hope right now. I know COVID hasn't really been kind to everyone in terms of huaka'i and excursions. So we thought, you know what? Let's go to Disneyland and Olelo Hawaii. How cool would it be to have a full Hawaiian language day, La Olelo Hawaii, at one of the most happiest places on earth, right? For me as an educator, as a Hawaiian language advocate, cultural practitioner, hula dancer, Olelo Hawaii is my life, and we need it. And a lot of people don't know is that there are two official state languages in Hawaii, Hawaiian and English. A lot of us say Hawaiian language first. So that was really the push and the drive, was to continue to inspire our keiki, to let them know that they can olelo Hawaii wherever we go. So why not start at Disneyland? And like you said, there's going to be about 100 of us, and we're ready. We prepped everybody with words, courtesy of Kanaio Kana, and translations, and all the tools they need to just go for it.
And to follow up a little on that, I mean, what is the overall goal, I guess? What would be the best outcome from this experience of being able to do this in an attraction like Disneyland, where there's a lot of different people there?
Yes, the overall goal would be to just normalize and let those that haven't necessarily been able to hear our language, we get a lot of visitors all the time, but not everyone knows what Hawaiian language is, what Olelo Hawaii really encompasses. So our plan of attack, I guess you could say, is to spread ourselves out as much as possible, as opposed to traveling as one group throughout the day, and just Olelo Hawaii between families, between each other. Aloha and mahalo goes a long way. So just greeting others throughout the park and letting them hear this language that's not commonly spoken, right? We hear Spanish, we hear Filipino, Japanese, all these beautiful native languages, but not Hawaiian. And I think it's definitely time that Hawaiian is heard around the world and, takes its place amongst all the other languages.
Maile, what was interesting also I heard you say is that the goal is to bring Hawaiian language into every home. Can you talk a little bit about that goal, that Hawaiian language, especially for our audience, not everyone watching is, Hawaiian by birth, but may have an interest in this language, and tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing there to kind of bring it beyond people who may only be Hawaiian by ancestry.
Oh, mahalo for that question. That's a great question, because that is one of the most common questions that I get. How do you feel about non-Hawaiians learning Olelo Hawaii? And, I come from a very, I want to share a little bit about my personal story. My mother is pure Boricua. She's Puerto Rican, raised in Kalihi Valley. My father is Hawaiian, Chinese, Portuguese. But it was my mother really that had this great passion for the culture, the Hawaiian culture, the mele, the song, the hula. She pushed us to go to hula from when we could walk. She would sing Hawaiian music to me constantly. And so it was my mother, who was a non-Hawaiian parent in my ohana, that pushed me into that place. And it's really it really planted this seed in me that when we live in Hawaii, we have kuleana. We have kuleana to love and aloha Hawaii like she deserves to be. And if we reflect back to the time of the Kingdom of Hawaii, everyone spoke Olelo Hawaii, no matter what race you were. If you're a Hawaiian national to the Hawaiian Kingdom, a citizen of the Hawaiian Kingdom, you're expected to know how to Olelo Hawaii. Legal documents were all written in Olelo Hawaii. So it was an everyday thing. Bank transactions, supermarket, interactions, all in Olelo Hawaii. And so this is really the Hawaii that I want to try and foster and bring back, because that's who we are. And I think that a lot of our culture and our values have diminished along the way with the loss of the language. And so if we start integrating into every home, if you call Hawaii home, Olelo Hawaii is our language of this land that's raising you, that's nurturing you, that's nourishing you, your body, your mind, your spirit. And it only makes sense to be able to understand and foster that aloha for the people, for the aina, for our culture. So it can only be a win-win situation.
We like to bring in questions and comments from viewers who are tuning in. Heidi's actually saying Hawaiian language should be taught in all state schools. And Kumu, we were talking before we went live this morning a little bit about this, about the incorporation of Hawaiian language within this curriculum and in schools. If you can talk about where we're at now with trying to introduce Olelo Hawaii to keiki in various classrooms throughout the state.
Well, I think for all of us sitting here who grew up in Hawaii, we remember a time when we were in elementary school and we had, an elder, the kupuna or makua, come and visit our class. If our school had enough funding to pay for a kupuna to come in and teach us. And so some of us were fortunate to have one and some of us weren't, right? And so finally, we are at this place, and I think it's because of the whole, Hawaiian Renaissance and the Punana Leo schools. And, 20, 30 years later, the DOE said, you know what? It only makes sense. Our keiki can be more grounded and have a stronger foundation if we start to integrate Olelo Hawaii and the Hawaiian culture into every classroom. And so what happened about 5-6 years ago, there was the DOE regulated or made it mandatory for Hawaiian culture to be integrated into every classroom. And it's an initiative called Naho Pena'a'o, which means the outcome of learning. What are their learning outcomes for a Hawaii student, whether Kanaka Maoli or not? And of course, there's all these content areas that need to be hit. But I believe the most common, the most powerful thing that we can give them is knowing who they are, where they come from, the stories of this place, and how to be better stewards and citizens of Hawaii. And so Naho Pena'a'o is a movement that asks all teachers to integrate Hawaiian culture, whether at a very small degree or level, whether it's just using small words here and there like makaukau and using counting in Olelo Hawaii, to as deep as integrating the Hawaiian language curriculum full on into their social studies unit. So it can be done at whatever level is comfortable for the teachers, but it is expected now. Yay.
I want to bring this in from Sherry Wong. This is just a comment, but Kahoku, it's really building on what you're doing. And she's saying it's time to make Olelo Hawaii normal again. This Disney trip, obviously a big first step in that process, but tell us more about beyond the trip, how we do that and how you're hoping to do that with your organization.
Absolutely. Mahalo, Sherry Wong, for your mana'o. Taking it back to the time of the kingdom, like Maile said, our ali'i spoke eloquent Olelo Hawaii. They were just fluid. Everything was written Mako Olelo Hawaii. And that was what was normal, right? And even when our ali'i huaka'i, right, when they take trips, they've circumnavigated the world and shared political assignments in Kuleana, Ma'oka Olelo Hawaii, representing Hawaii. So ultimately, that is where I hope, we can take Kaiwa Ho'ola'i to or the next level, I guess you should say. Everyone's excited for Disneyland. Next year, who knows, we might go abroad, maybe Aotearoa, connect with our ohana there, or, maybe even to Europe. And sorry, referencing Kumumaile again, in Aotearoa, it is required that a lot of the workplaces and workspaces that those people there need to take a Te Reo Maori class. And just like our schools now, how it's required in the DOE, it should be required for everybody, no matter where you work, you are of this place, you are from this place, you have a kuleana, you have a kuleana to this place. And by learning and making Olelo Hawaii normal, you'll understand all the different place names, the wahipana, our sacred spaces, and what they mean and how you can kokua to continue all of these treasures, I guess you could say. So yeah, we have a lot of work to go. There's a lot that's been done, but if everybody jumps in and helps, no matter if you're kanaka or not, if you're willing and open to try, yeah, o ka mea nui ka ho'a'o. As long as you try, we love you even more.
And we know that does take effort to get this going and fundraising that had to be done. And there's actually been some celebrities that have attached themselves and who have donated to your cause. If you can share a little bit about that effort to get the team there and those who have stepped up to help.
We have been so blessed and fortunate to have donations coming in from so many different organizations. Pa'i Foundation, Kapili Roofing, Jennifer Aniston. We're super surprised. We communicated via email, and she, by way of the Wonder Trust, I believe, blessed us with a beautiful donation. And it's amazing. We are so thankful and grateful that people with these roles, right? Stars, I guess you could say, in all of these capacities, recognize the importance of all of our work, whether it's homeschooling our keiki in Kahale Koaka, or taking trips like this that might seem like it's just a fun trip, but really there's a deeper meaning at mana'o, but they're able to acknowledge all of these efforts, helping us to move our language forward. So a lot of fundraising, a lot of work, and we're excited to just olelo this weekend.
Yeah, never thought we'd hear Kapili Roofing and Jennifer Aniston tied together in that way, but you brought them together.
I want to ask a little bit more about Kahale Hoaka for people who are not familiar with the online learning program that you're doing, and they want to start to dip their toe in and perhaps have a little bit more Hawaiian language exposure, or maybe get their kids involved. Tell us a bit about the online offerings that you have right now.
Well, Kahale Hoaka actually was born during lockdown 2 years ago from, like I mentioned, Kalani Honikairo, the co-founder, and myself coming together and saying we need to build something and we need to do it fast. And as Kanaka, we evolve and we move and we make it work. And so that's exactly what we did. So we started out with a keiki program, which is a beginning Olelo Hawaii class for keiki, because we needed to start somewhere. And we saw, whoa, like there is such a want for this. There's such a desire, i'ini, for this. And so we started to build our company and build our different courses. So we have a beginning olelo for keiki. We have a beginning olelo for makua, or adults. We have live classes for the adults. We have pre-recorded classes if you want to move at your own pace and be self-paced. And you have, your schedule kind of doesn't allow you to commit to a live class. We have options. And now we're starting our newest venue, which is Kamailio Cafe, which gives the space for beginning to intermediate speakers to come together and just practice conversational practice. So we have all of that. Plus, on top of that, we've created curricula that are integrated into the DOE schools and can be used as a homeschool curriculum as well. And they cover areas from social studies to science to language arts to the arts to world languages to Olelo Hawaii, all woven in together into these beautiful curricula. And so we have everything that, for every age that you might want to try at your own comfort level, at whatever pace or schedule works for you. So we have lots for you out there.
And just to expand upon that, with the pandemic, of course, it's caused a lot of people to have to shift the
Mhm.
way in which they do things. Of course, we are doing this virtually.
Yes.
But there's also opportunities, for parents who are looking for opportunities to have their children more immersed. The immersion schools have certainly become a vessel for this perpetuation of the Hawaiian language. But again, during a time of COVID and remote and distance learning, not a lot of Olelo Hawaii options were available for some of these parents who are looking to really make sure that their kiki are being able and being taught in this way. Can you explain a little more about how that is woven into what you folks are doing specifically with online learning or with children?
Absolutely. Well, I have to go back to immersion, and that's where my roots come from. All three of my keiki are Kulakaiapuni keiki. And so a lot of what I put into this is my background as a parent, my background as an Olelo Hawaii teacher, my background as a literacy teacher in English-speaking classrooms, and everything else, and just life. I mean, we restore fish ponds, we restore lo'i on our aina, we live it. And so I put everything in, all of those things, into what we have created. And so we have a hale kula, which is a homeschool educators package, and it can be used in classrooms and at home. But more specifically, I wanted to talk about parents who are looking for alternatives to in-person classroom. Our hale kula educators package crosses off all content areas from K through 6th grade except for math. So you can always find math because it's universal. You can find curricula for math all around, whatever works for you. But we take care of everything. Everything's done for you. It's pre-recorded. Worksheets are made. Flashcards are made. Practice Mele and Oli videos are made. Project-based. Everything is project-based, because that really is pili to our culture, the Hawaiian culture. We don't just go, oh, let's just learn math. Let's just learn science. It was, let's just learn how to be. And it included everything. So that's really how our hale kula is structured. And it's fun. It's super interactive. And I'm finding that teachers and parents alike that are using it are coming to me and they're saying, hey, I'm actually learning along with my kid. This is really amazing. Me and my kiki can learn together. So that's what we have to offer for parents that are looking for a homeschool alternative. But it can also be used in tandem with other curricula just to supplement, or just standalone, like I mentioned.
Kahoku, you talked about normalizing Hawaiian language quite a bit, and the place names that are part of our environment. Obviously, we're all like it or not, or intentionally or not, we're all using Hawaiian language all the time. One of the things that I noticed recently, just in the last few years, and I don't know when they launched this, but for example, some of the banks like Bank of Hawaii, when you do the drop-down menu, Olelo Hawaii is one of the choices at the ATM. Can you talk a little bit about why that is so important to have just that kind of, everyday experience that suddenly that is given as an option, and why that's important?
Yeah, it's amazing that we have these options, whether it's at the bank or at certain grocery stores, but it's crucial and it's important because we are growing so many Hawaiian language learners, families, ohana, and we need to give them that option. So, there is that balance and that equity and equality in a sense, so that they know, I've gone through the Kula Kaiapuni system or Aha Punana Leo or Naliko Poli Makua. Where does it end? It shouldn't end, right? We shouldn't have it end for all of these kiki and their ohana that continue on this path of Hawaiian medium education. So we do see a lot of Olelo Hawaii in restaurants, right? We see different foods or different plate lunches, but that's just the beginning, right? And when you go to Bank of Hawaii, and honestly, I haven't done it yet because I usually never pull out cash, but the fact that you can go through a whole transaction and withdraw money or deposit Maoka Olelo Hawaii in Hawaiian language is inspiring. And I think once we get those options, maybe throughout the construction sites or in Starbucks, everybody loves Starbucks, then we're on the right track for Olelo Hawaii to become normal and around.
And I want to expand a little bit about where we've come to. I mean, when you think back to a few generations ago, this was a language that was near extinction, and where people weren't speaking it. It wasn't being taught, and it was outlawed at one point. But where we are now, can you speak to Maile? Maybe we'll start with you. The progression and how far we've come from a language that was nearly extinct to where we are now, and how we got here.
Oh, wow. So this is like a success story. I mean, I was born during the Renaissance. So I was born at a time, I think I always try to reflect back on that. And I think that was really what ignited my fire, even when I was in my mama's opu. They're planning to, sell hokule'a and save Kaho'olave, and then Punana Leo started soon after. And so to see the growth from when the first Punana Leo schools opened to now is just absolutely amazing. And I always reflect back on this idea where one generation's knowledge in turn becomes the next generation's wisdom, and then becomes the next generation's being. And so in my lifetime, I've seen that happen. I've seen those three, from the knowledge, gaining back the knowledge, trying to learn everything through the university, through puke, through books, through whatever elders were still alive. And then us becoming parents and giving that to our keiki. And the really magical thing that's happened is that it actually just skipped. And so for me, just being at that knowledge level, because my parents had very little to give me. They sent me to Kamehameha, they sent me to hula to learn, So it was very like secondary. It wasn't a first language or culture in my home, but making it my first language in home as a choice as a parent, and then seeing my keiki just skip the whole wisdom phase and go straight into being. And I see that with all these haumana, our 33,000 plus strong speakers. It is in our being. In everything that we do, we're looking through this lens of our kupuna, kuna ike, the Olelo Hawaii. And it's so empowering. And to know that it's just going to multiply and multiply and multiply. It's exponential. So it's very exciting.
Kahoku, I see you nodding there, and I'd love for you to reflect on the same thing.
No, there's just so many things that she touched on that a lot of us can relate to. I grew up in an Olelo Hawaii speaking household where that was, that's all I knew. So personal story, I don't have an English name. My first name is Kahoku Alohi Okeao. So going through day-to-day things, I always told people, oh, Alohi is my English name. But little did I know that's part of my Inoa Hawaii. And I think for Keiki to understand, right, that their inoa, their names carry all these kuleana, and like Maile said, it is who we are, then we will be okay. And as long as our Keiki and our ohana know that they have this responsibility as a collective, right, and individuals, we will push our Olelo Hawaii to continue to grow exponentially and be all over the place and really make our kupuna proud, because they were reprimanded before for speaking Hawaiian in schools, but now we're at the point where I think Eho Apili Mai Kahanuala on Instagram said it best. Mai pa'ai kaleo. Yeah, do not withhold your voice. If you know some Olelo Hawaii or the most Olelo Hawaii, Olelo. As long as you're trying and helping to Olelo in everything that you do, that is where we will succeed.
We're running out of time here, but we do want to provide an opportunity for each of you to kind of just share a little more if people want information about what you both are doing or to support the cause. Kahoku, we'll start off with you. If you can share more about anyone who maybe is interested. Maybe, we have people also watching from the mainland. Maybe they can swing by Disneyland this week, but any more information that you can provide to our viewers who may be interested in supporting.
Absolutely. For those that are interested in joining us, whether you're based in Hawaii or Europe or anywhere around the world, what is this? Sorry, February 19th, this Saturday, join us at Disneyland for La Olelo Hawaii. You're welcome to join. If you Olelo Hawaii a little bit, like I said, or a lot, come. We'll make you part of our ohana. We'll teach you all the things you need to know that day. But to keep up with us, we'll be doing a lot of Instagram lives and reels on Instagram, but follow us at Kikaha 2022. And yeah, we hope to see a lot of you joining us for this magical excursion. And this is the first year. So we will continue to do this for years to come.
And Maile, if people want to connect with you as well.
Yes. Kahoku, I like how much you guys. Oh my gosh, I gotta get my Kiki involved with you and all you do. But as far as Kahale Hoaka, we have so much in store. Like I mentioned, we already have our courses that have been built that you can dive right into right away. Some things that we have coming up right around the corner is our live Papamakora adult courses, which happen in intervals throughout the year. So if you want to jump into a live session for 6 weeks with me, and we're going to start next week. We also always have free workshops for Kahale So the best way to do it is just go to kahalehoaka.com. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can just sign up to be a part of our email ohana. And, if you're not ready to sign up for a course or commit just yet, but you want to be in the loop, sign up for our email ohana. You'll know exactly what kind of free workshops we have or paid courses we have or anything that fits your i'ini, your desires. Hopefully Kahale Hoaka can do that for you and bring it right into your home, right into your spaces. So check out kahalehoaka.com. We also have our Facebook page, Kahale Hoaka, and our Instagram, Kahale Hoaka. So easy.
Well, we want to thank you both for joining us here this morning and sharing a little bit more about your efforts to help to perpetuate Aloha Hawaii in our community during a month. And it's great to even see that we have this month now where we can celebrate this language and all that you folks are doing within our community and for our keiki. So mahalo for being on, and Kahoku, have a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing everything that happens this weekend up there in Anaheim.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Wonderful to hear from them. And I love what Miguel had to say. He said, what a beautiful and refreshing show today. I can spend hours listening to this great message. It is a nice break from politics and COVID and all the things we usually cover to really celebrate Hawaiian language. It is, of course, Hawaiian Language Month here in Hawaii. And I think it was really nice to hear from both of them just this message that you don't necessarily need to be native Hawaiian to celebrate Hawaiian language, to learn Hawaiian language, to integrate it into your lives and into your homes. And really, that's why we brought them both on today. We want to highlight the great work that they're doing. And of course, follow along that trip to Disneyland. That sounds like that's going to be such a good time.
Yeah, and another thing that they said, even if you know a little Hawaiian or a lot, the key is to just keep speaking Olelo Hawaii so it becomes normalized. I remember growing up going to some of these emerging schools, and I really didn't know anything at the time. And my only thing I would say is ole wau Olelo Hawaii, which is I don't speak Hawaiian because they would be speaking Hawaiian. But it is part of the immersion process, and growing up in an area where you learn that you pick things up and you become interested. And so it really begins with just an interest, and it begins with practicing it as much as you can. And it's great to see how they're doing this almost flash mob, if you will, this Hawaiian Aloha Hawaii flash mob in Disneyland this weekend to really spur that on, and the efforts and the community that has rallied around this group and this effort to support them during this time. So great to see all that come together.
Yeah, I loved hearing from both of them. On Friday, we are going to be sticking with education. We're going to be talking with Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi, talking about what's going on with schools. Of course, the COVID numbers have been going down. There have been some talks about possibly dropping restrictions when it comes to mask mandates and other things. So we'll be talking to him about how schools are facing this issue and getting an update on where schools are at. There also has been a lot of talk about all the online learning and the learning loss that happened last year. So how are students doing and how are they making up? Also, with all the teachers who missed so much school during the Omicron phase, are schools back in full session? We'll be talking about all of that on Friday.
Looking forward to that conversation. We thank you for tuning in this morning, and we will see you right back here on Friday. Aloha.
Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs and Beachside Roofing.